I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said so. I have this hairy mole right on my shoulder, you know. And my bestest buddy Allah, he works for me though. I call him God to make you think I'm pure as white snow. In the damp cave of Hira I met this bad man. He squeezed me until I threw up the Quran. When I ran to Khadija in anguish and fears, she explained, "This is Jibril," and wiped off my tears. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I am him, and Allah caters to my needs and every whim. His reward is that I let people think he is Lord. Then he lets me torment the people when I get bored. Now the world must revert and become just like me, and never ask questions and never be free. You'll become dumb blind Muslims and do as you're told, or your heads will be rolling your family's soul. Oh, Aisha, ooh la la, what a pretty dress. May I wear it? Your dresses get those revelations rolling. No, don't touch my eye makeup. Mine is too young for makeup. I'm 54 after all. My religion, Islam, grew like fungi on bread due to people's reluctance to part with their head. And because I got rid of the people who think Allah's slaves can be duped to do things that sure stink. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said it. I meet up with Jibreel when I'm in need of new. And my bestest buddy Allah delivers on time. These girls and boys and slaves and all these riches of mine. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I told you. My brothel in the sky awaits if you say it's true. But if Allah will find out in the mosque you did fart, He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. Oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain after the food I ate in Khaybar. Allah is cutting my aorta.
Allah is a false god, a false god, a false god. Allah is a false god, a false god. Allah is a false god, a false god, a false god. Allah is a false god, a false god. And Muhammad is not a prophet. Muhammad is not a prophet. If you want grace and mercy and love, Islam is not for you. But Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the King of Kings who died to save us all. If you just repent and believe He took your sins on the cross, then mercy and grace, forgiveness and love, eternity can be yours.
Hallelujah. Let Lord Jesus Christ shine forth. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. Welcome to another live stream with TCCI Ministries. And I have the privilege of having Robert Spencer with me. Peace of Christ be with you, Robert. How are you?
And with your spirit. Good. How are you?
By God's grace, I'm good. Thank you. What have you been up to since last couple of days?
What have I been up to? That's a very interesting question to ask me, because as it happens, I'm writing a new book about
No, not again.
Yes, about the gangs in Britain and where it all comes from and how it happens elsewhere too, and the situation with all the denial and the lies and everything to cover it up. And so that's coming along. I got 15,000 words, which is, let's see, that's about a fourth of the way through. It's not going to be a big book. and they want to put it out in the fall, so I have to turn it in by the end of this month, and then it'll be out sometime in probably September or October, and then the one that I wrote before will be out after that in the spring of next year. That one is about how Islam is bad for people and communities. So it all kind of goes together. But anyway, those are the two next books.
Well, I wasn't expecting within 2 days you put together a book. I was just expecting.
No, I only put together a fourth of a book.
That's still like book. I was more expecting as like, oh, it was rested weekend, but it came up different. Actually, it's very good to hear you are writing something about grooming gangs.
Yes.
We are playing denial in UK, and with the new government, it just become more denial.
Exactly. So they thought that it would be timely for that reason, and that's why they wanted to rush it and put it ahead of the other one that's already done. And so it's all very exciting. And there's so much material, though. The problem will be to cut it back enough to have it be comprehensive, but not over long. Want it to be a short book people can read quickly and get the information.
Well, your books are, even the long ones, they are very good. I find
even the long ones are short.
That's the shorter version of it.
No, even the long ones are short because other people, they write these very, very big books. And I would love to do that actually on some topics, but never have had the chance because the publishers never gave me enough time. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just not the kind of book that I write. But, those very big books of history, it's very impressive. But even my long books are short.
Well, they are very helpful to me. They are very helpful to me. And I'm sure Body of Christ as well as Muslims find it helpful too. Muslims are probably doing denial, but it's helpful.
Well, I hope so.
And thank you very much, everyone who is joining us in the we are going through Quran with the author of the Critical Quran, Robert Spencer. And so far we finished 3 surahs and we are in mid Surah 4, I think. We are in Surah 4, verse 75. So if you are new here, the way we do this is we just read a couple of verses. Robert Spencer shares information with us, and then we take it from there. And if you want to get our attention and then bring up your questions, kindly put @ in front of DCCI Ministries, and then I'll kind of see them, and then I hopefully bring them to attention of everyone. Okay, I just made it something. Just a second. Okay, Surah 4, verse 75. How would you not fight for the sake of Allah, or for the weak among man, and for man, and for woman, and for the for children who are crying? Our Lord, bring us forth from out this town, where people are oppressors, or give us some protecting friend from your presence, or give us from your presence some defender.
Now, this sounds very noble, right? Give us some protecting friend, give us a defender, bring us forth from out of this town where people are oppressors. It sounds great. The Quran is against oppression, see, and the people are calling upon Allah to rescue them from oppression. But remember what we saw last time. Oh, that's bad. If my books seem like I'm writing them when I'm sleeping, I better wake up.
I think that's in the context of like everyone is sleeping and you are writing books.
Oh, that's true, because I can't sleep nights. Anyway, 75 says that Allah hears the oppressed, the cry of the oppressed, you see. But remember, we saw it last time, that Allah does not forgive that a partner be ascribed to him. He forgives all except that of whom he wills. I'm quoting from verse 448. So if the worst sin is shirk, is associating partners with Allah, then that has to be understood as being the oppression that Allah helps the people fight. That the oppression is represented by people not believing only in Allah or not believing in Allah at all.
Yeah. Those who believe fight for the sake of Allah, and those who disbelieve fight for the cause of Taghut. So fight the minions of Satan. Indeed, Satan's strategy is always weak.
And so see how the enemies who fight the Muslims, that's Satan. And so it's all, oh, sorry, that's my, I don't even know if you can hear that, but that's my email. There we go. It's gone now. Now, fight the minions of Satan is everybody who fights the Muslims. They're the minions of Satan. There's no gray area. There's no people who are good but not Muslim. There's no chance for anybody to have the slightest bit of goodness unless you're Muslim. You're either with the Muslims and Allah or you're with Satan. And this is how Muslims see the world to this day.
That kind of shows how they are engaging with non-Muslims in fight as well.
Yeah, that's why one of the reasons why they're so rude and nasty and mean, because they think these people are the slaves of Satan. They are working for Satan. Whereas a Christian can see a Muslim and think, this is a good-hearted soul who was created by a good God and has been led astray, and be charitable and kind to him. But that can't be reversed. That can't be done on the other side.
Yeah. Haven't you seen those to whom it was said, withhold your hands, establish prayer and give alms, but when fighting was prescribed for them, look, a party of them fear mankind even as much as they fear Allah, or with greater fears, and say, our Lord, why have you ordained fighting for us? If only would you give us respite for a while. Say, the comfort is this world of fleeting, and hereafter will be better for him who fears Allah, and you will not be wronged even to the extent of the dawn upon the date stone.
So you see, you have to fight. This is very important because people say jihad is only spiritual, and they claim this is in the Quran. But the Quran itself, when you actually read it, it's very clear. Fighting is always taking up arms and going and fighting and trying to kill the enemies of Allah. And so in here you see the people don't like fighting because they fear mankind. This wouldn't make any sense if you're thinking about jihad as a spiritual struggle. Why would you fear mankind when you're trying to be good? You know, and so it doesn't make any sense except if you're taking up arms and Allah is telling you, you have to. You don't have a choice here. Fighting was prescribed for you, and you can't fear human beings more than you fear Allah.
I guess we shouldn't also be surprised, especially this month, Muslims just start fasting for Ramadan. Lots of jihad activities are taking place.
Well, see, in Ramadan, you try to please Allah all the more. And so what's the greatest deed you can do? When somebody asked Muhammad, what is the greatest deed, a deed greater than jihad? He said, I cannot think of such a deed. So the greatest thing you can do is jihad. And the month of Ramadan is the month to do the things you want to do to try to please Allah more. So there's more jihad.
You will be very busy this month.
Yes.
Wherever you may be, death will overtake you, even if you are in a high towels. Yet, if they experience something good, they say, this is from Allah. And if an evil thing happens to them, they say, this is from your doing. Say, all is from Allah. What is wrong with those people that they do not come near in order to understand an event?
So that makes it even more clear yet again. We're talking about hot war. We're not talking about fighting spiritually, because wherever you may be, death will overtake you, even if you are in high towers. So whether they fight or not, they're still going to die. So they might as well fight. And so, you see, a spiritual struggle doesn't necessarily have to do with death, but jihad warfare does. And that's what's being exhorted here.
Uh,
79. Whatever good happens to you.
Whatever good happens to you, it is from Allah, and whatever evil happens to you, it is from you yourself. We have sent you as a messenger to mankind, and Allah is sufficient as a witness. Whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah, and whoever turns away, we have not sent you as a guardian over them. And they
We talked about that last time, but just as a reminder, whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. But the Quran never says whoever obeys Allah has obeyed the messenger. It repeatedly says obey Allah and obey the messenger, which shows the Quran only Muslims can't possibly be following the Quran only, even as they claim to, because they have to obey the messenger as well as Allah, and they can't do that without the hadith.
and also Sunni Muslims who follow the Quran and the Hadith, they cannot pick and choose, because you have to follow Muhammad and Allah in its fullness. Therefore, you cannot pick and choose the Hadith.
Precisely.
Verse 81. And they say obedience, but when they have departed from you, some of them spend the night in planning something other than what you say. Allah records what they plan by night. So oppose them and put your trust in Allah. Allah is sufficient as one in whom you trust. Will they not then ponder on the Quran if it had been from anyone other than Allah, they would have find much disparity within it.
So there's a challenge. If it had been from anyone other than Allah, they would have found much discrepancy within it. So therefore, we must assume that there's no discrepancy at all in the Quran, because if there were, it wouldn't be from Allah.
But it says much. So does it consider like 5 as much? Does it consider 100 as much?
Well, that's a good question, because there's all kinds of discrepancy in it, as we've already seen.
It's just like, what do they mean with much?
Yeah, that's a good point. So apparently some discrepancy is okay.
Yeah. And any news whether, and I was going to bring up something, but I forgot. And if any news, whether it's safe or fear, come to them, they spread it all over. Yet if they had referred to the messenger and to those who are in authority, those among them who are able to think out of the matter would have known it. If they had not been for the grace of Allah upon you and His mercy, you would have followed Satan, except for fear. So fight in the way of Allah. You are not a burden except with yourself, and urge the believers on. Perhaps Allah will restrain the might of those who disbelieve. Allah is stronger in might and stronger in inflicting punishment. Whoever intervenes in a good cause will have the reward of it, and whoever intervenes in an evil cause will bear the consequences of it. Allah oversees all things. When you are greeted with a greeting, extend a better greeting or return the same one. Indeed, Allah takes stock of all things.
Now notice that we suddenly had a change of subject there. We were talking about jihad. We were talking about fighting the disbelievers in verse 84. We were talking about getting rewarded for fighting jihad. And then suddenly, if somebody says to you hello, say hello to them back. Hey, thanks, but we were just talking about fighting the enemies of Allah, the warriors of Satan in battle, and perhaps Allah will restrain the might of those who disbelieve. And suddenly it's, don't forget to tell people hi.
Even don't forget to tell people hi part. Am I right to remember they cannot respond to the hi from Christians?
That's correct. That's not listed here, but that is in Islamic law. That if you see a Muslim, you say peace be upon you, and if you see a non-Muslim, you say peace be upon those who are rightly guided. That is the Muslims.
That's so.
And, when I was in college, I didn't know that. And I thought I was tough. I went up to these Muslim guys that I knew and I said, Assalamu alaikum. And they would say, oh, you're learning Arabic. And I would say, yeah, Assalamu alaikum. And they would say, okay. And I was baffled that they would never say wa alaikum assalam. But it only was later I learned they couldn't say it to me.
Yeah.
It's against the rules.
Wonderful Islam is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Allah, there is no God except Him. He gathers you all on the day of resurrection, of which there is no doubt. Who is more trustworthy in discourse than Allah?
Well, I can think of a few people.
I can think few people. I can think lots of few people. Lots of people. Remember, like there is in one of the tradition, Abu Bakr says he would not feel safe from the deception of Allah, even if his 1 foot is in paradise.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, how can, if Abu Bakr, father-in-law of Muhammad, is saying that, how can Quran turns up and then says Allah is the most trustworthy one?
Good question.
What ails you that you have become two parties regarding the hypocrites? When Allah sent them back because of what they earned, do you seek to guide him whom Allah has led astray?
Whoops. Do you seek to guide him whom Allah has led astray? So Allah is not trustworthy. He just said he was trustworthy, or nobody's more trustworthy than he is. And yet now he's not trustworthy because he could lead you astray. And he whom Allah leads astray, for him you cannot find a way.
Would you also kind of think this as Muslims shouldn't be doing dawah, because at the end Allah is the one who is kind of guiding people. Muslims are taking lots of benefits and barakah from all these dawah things.
That's true. They're doing all this dawah, talking to people that Allah has led astray.
Yeah.
Who are they to fight Allah?
Or why they think they can do better than Allah.
Yep.
Do you seek to guide him whom Allah has led astray? He whom Allah led astray, for him you cannot find a way. They wish that you would disbelieve even as disbelieved, that you may be the one same level. So do not choose friends from them until they migrate to the way of Allah. If they turn back, then they take them and kill them wherever you find them. Choose no friends and helpers among them.
This is a very important verse, 489.
Did I read that correct?
Yes. Very important verse. Very important. Because in the first place, we are talking about the hypocrites. You see that from 88. 88 says, what ails you that you become two parties regarding the hypocrites? The hypocrites are those who say they're Muslims, but they're not. And in 89, we hear about the hypocrites. They wish you would disbelieve even as they disbelieve. So the hypocrites don't believe, and they want to make you not believe. So do not choose friends with them. Don't be friendly with them until they migrate in the way of Allah. So if they move from where they were and come live with the Muslims, then you can be friends with them, because that would be a sign that they really do believe. But if they move to where the Muslims live and then they leave and they turn back, they decide to go away, then you should hunt them down and kill them wherever you find them. And so this is one of the verses that is mandating the death penalty for those who leave Islam. And a lot of lying Islamic apologists like to say it's only about treason because, you see, they were joining the Muslim community and then they left. And so they're traitors. But this verse doesn't say anything about them doing anything to be treasonous. It only says that they lived with you and then they left, and that they don't believe now. And so they joined the Muslims, they believed, and then they decided they didn't believe and they left. And the Muslims can't let that happen, and they have to go kill the people who left.
I love the way Islam spreads pieces.
Yes. And this is, of course, this also recalls the famous hadith about the Ukul or Urena tribe that I have in the footnotes. Some people of Ukul or Urena tribe came to Al-Medina, and its climate did not suit them. So the Prophet ordered them to go to the herd of milch camels and to drink their milk and urine as a medicine. So they went as directed, and after they became healthy, they killed the shepherd of the Prophet and drove away all the camels. So you see, they were ungrateful. He cured them with the camel urine, and then they're ungrateful, and they kill his shepherd and drive away his camels. The news reached the Prophet early in the morning, and he sent men in their pursuit, and they were captured and brought at noon. He then ordered to cut their hands and feet, and it was done, and their eyes were branded with heated pieces of iron. They were put in Al-Hara, and when they asked for water, no water was given them. Abu Kilaba said, These people committed theft and murder, became infidels after embracing Islam, and fought against Allah and his messenger. I think that's one of the most gruesome of all the hadith because of the terrible punishment he gives to these people. But you could argue, well, they deserved it because they were treacherous first. They killed his shepherd, they drove away his camels, and so on. But note that the Quran verse doesn't make any mention, as I said before, of treason. It only says, if they come stay with you and leave, then kill them.
Even the tradition you mentioned, like that, they could stop in early stages. They put them in a desert with the put hot irons in their ice stuff. So they want to torture them. It's not like they want slow death and painful death for those people who choose to turn back.
Indeed.
Except those who seek refuge with a people with whom you have covenant, or come to you because their hearts forbid them to make war on you or make war on their own people. If Allah had willed, he could have given them power over you, so that assuredly they would have fought you. So if they remain aloof from you and do not wage war against you and offer you peace, Allah allows you no way against them.
So this is very important because Islamic apologists like to cite this verse also to say, see, if they don't fight you, then you don't fight them. If they remain aloof from you and do not wage war against you and offer you peace, Allah allows you no way against them. But you go to the Tafsir on this, the Tafsir al-Jalalain, for example, says that this command only refers to those who submit to Islamic rule. He says, if they keep away from you and do not fight you, offering a truce and submit to you, Allah has not given you any way against such people to seize and kill them. In other words, it's like the dimitude of the Jews and Christians. You allow them to submit and they live subservient to you, and you don't kill them, but you don't live with them as equals.
Even though they kind of become like you.
Yes.
Still equal.
Indeed. Well, if they convert to Islam, that's another thing.
You will find others who want security from you and security from their own people. As often as they are returned to hostility, they are plunged into it. If they do not keep aloof from you and offer you peace and hold off their hands, then take them and kill them wherever you find them. Against such people, we have given you clear justification.
So here, the people who submit, if they end up not submitting and they return to fighting you, then no holds barred, kill them wherever you find them.
And their blood is justified for you.
Exactly.
It is not for believers to kill a believer except by mistake. He who has killed a believer by mistake must set free a believing slave and pay blood money for the family of the person who was killed, unless they remit it as a charity. If he is from a people who are hostile hostile to you, and he's a believer, then he's set free as a believing slave. And if he comes from a people with whom you have covenant, then the blood money must be paid to his people and a believing slave must be set free. And whoever does not have a means must fast for 2 consecutive months, a penance from Allah. Allah is a knower and wise.
All right, so notice all this business about freeing slaves. So the existence of slavery is taken for granted, and the continuing existence of slavery is taken for granted. You're not freeing all the slaves. You are only just freeing some slaves in order to make up for having killed a Muslim.
If I don't have a slave.
What's that now?
If there is no slave, if I don't have a slave.
If there's no slave, you have to pay the blood money. And the blood money, it's very interesting because it's graduated. It's different according to who you kill. If you kill a Muslim, you have to pay a certain amount. If you kill a Christian or a Hindu or a Jew, you pay less because their lives aren't as important as those of a Muslim. And it's also important to note that it is not for a believer to kill a believer except by mistake. So a Muslim can't kill another Muslim. The only way he can kill another Muslim is by mistake, but there are many Muslims who kill other Muslims, and we have to understand that this is where the principle of takfir comes in, that they are declaring these other Muslims to be non-Muslims and then killing them as a result. And so it's very convenient. They're not supposed to kill Muslims, so they just say they're not Muslims, and then they can kill them.
Actually, that's very dangerous because it takes only one person to identify you as non-Muslim anymore. And
Yes.
then all of his gangs come after you.
Indeed.
Whoever kills a believer deliberately, his reward is Jahannam forever. Allah is angry with him and he has cursed him and prepared for him an awful doom. O you who believe, when you go forth a fight in the way of Allah, be careful to make distinctions, and do not say, one who offers you peace, you are not a believer, seeking the profits of his life. With Allah are abundant spoils. You were even like this before, but Allah has since then been gracious to you. Therefore, take care to make distinctions. Allah is always informed of what you do.
Okay, so do not say to one who offers you peace when you're going forth to wage jihad. Do not say to somebody who offers you peace, you are not a believer, seeking the profits of this life. So what's being assumed here is that if they're going forth to fight and they see unbelievers, then they can take their property and make the women into slaves and kill the men and seize their property. And Allah is saying, if somebody comes to you and offers you peace, that is, he's surrendering, then you can't just say, oh, but you're not a believer, and plunder and take all his goods. You have to be patient and accept that they are believers, or accept that they're surrendering and not fight them.
Just a quick question, or if you can make a comment on, am I right to assume that even the previous verse was saying Muslims do not kill other Muslims except by mistake? You talked about how Muslims identify one another as non-Muslims. So would you identify Sunnis and Shiites the way they see one another as non-Muslim?
Yeah.
That they justify murdering one another?
Yeah, they do. Now, not all of them always think of each other as non-Muslims, or there'd be a lot more conflict between the two. But when Sunnis are killing Shia or vice versa, there's usually the idea behind it that they're not Muslims really at all. They just claim to be.
Another comment, if you can. So we were talking about, we read the verse, Muslim kills another Muslim, just pays the money or set the slave free, and then everything's fine. Someone is, I am assuming that's a Muslim comment, but someone is saying this, oh, this is a good deal. Instead of going into the jail and getting punished for your sin, for your crime, you simply pay money and then move on.
Well, I'm not sure that's a good deal for the rest of society, because what if there's some psychopath who's wealthy and he goes around killing people and then paying the blood money? He can just keep on killing people at will. What are you going to do?
And what about people who don't have the money and who don't have the slaves?
Indeed. I haven't had a slave in years.
In years, you should become a museum. Become a museum, you will get lots of them.
Okay, I've never actually had a slave. Sorry.
Verse 95.
95.
Those of the believers who sit still, other than those who have injury, not equal with the one who wage jihad in a way of Allah with their wealth and lives. Allah has conferred on those who wage jihad in their wealth and lives a rank above the sedentary. Allah has promised good to each, but He has bestowed on those who wage jihad great rewards above all that sedentary. Degrees of rank from Him and forgiveness and mercy. Allah is always forgiving and merciful.
So that's very clear. You have to wage jihad. You wage jihad, you are a higher rank than those who sit home and are sedentary. They're not equal. So the Muslims who don't wage jihad are not equal to the jihadis. The jihadis are on a higher level.
Am I right to remember there is a context of this verse as the verse comes? Allah says like, okay, if you wage jihad, then you are in good hands. And then there is a guy who is disabled, blind or something. He says, what about us? What about us? And then Allah kind of adds that part into it.
Yes, there's always that exception comes later on. I don't remember where exactly, but we'll get to it. Okay. In any case, this is explained as somebody coming up to Muhammad while he's in the middle of getting this revelation, and I think that's in Surah 9, right? But in any case, he gets this exception. Probably it's the combination of several different traditions, and this was put in the story fabricated in order to explain the discrepancy.
Okay. Verse 97. Indeed, as for those whom the angels take while they wrong themselves, they will ask, in what were you engaged? They will say, we were oppressed in the land. They will say, wasn't Allah's earth spacious enough for you, spacious enough that you could have migrated within? As for such people, their dwelling will be Jahannam, an evil destination. Except for the weak man and woman and children who are unable to decide a plan and are not shown a way.
So you notice this is starting to encourage migration. We were talking about jihad, and now we're talking about migration. That wasn't Allah's earth spacious enough that you could have migrated within it? Are you serious? Well, you're right. I can't handle the greatness of Islam. I don't even know what greatness is.
That's what I was going to ask. What is greatness?
Yes. See, he knows there's no greatness in Islam, so he can only write greatness.
I hope greatness is something good. I really hope that is something.
Too much greatness here. So we're getting to emigration, which of course is very important for nowadays and what's happening in Europe and Britain.
We are simply heading to destruction. Whoever emigrates for the sake of Allah will find much refuge and abundance in the earth. And whoever forsakes his home, a refuge for Allah and His Messenger, and death overtakes him, his reward is then obligatory upon Allah.
So there you go. His reward is obligatory upon Allah. Islam is very frightening to Muslims because Allah tells you about hellfire so much, and He tells you that if you're righteous, you will avoid the hellfire. But nobody can be righteous, as we know as Christians, because of sin, the universality of sin. And so there's a lot of good restaurants. That's good. And a lot of greatness in London. In any case, the thing about the emigration is Allah will reward you for emigrating in the way of Allah, for the sake of Allah, which means to emigrate, to bring the word of Allah, to bring Islam to the new land. And so we see many Muslims doing this nowadays, moving to the West to bring Islam to the new land. And they know the reward is obligatory upon Allah, so they don't have to be afraid of hellfire. It's not an absolute guarantee, but this is one of the few times that the Quran speaks about a reward being obligatory, that Allah has to give it.
Do you remember the clip of Erdogan where he was talking about go to Europe and then make babies, not 1, 2, 3, but like make lots of babies to conquer Europe?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got like clips of Muslim missionaries are saying only reason we are in West is to simply do dawah, to simply take over.
Oh, yeah. And there are many statements of that. Going back to 1974, Ouari Boumediene, who was at that time the, what was he, prime minister or president or something else, I forget. But in any case, he was the top man in Algeria. And he spoke at the UN, and he spoke about how the Muslim world would conquer the West by demographics, by having more children. And Gaddafi of Libya said the same thing a few years later.
Okay. So they are here to take over.
Yes.
To share life. Verse 101. And when you travel in a land, it is no sin for you to shorten prayer, if you fear that those who disbelieve may attack you. In truth, the unbelievers are open enemy to you.
Now you notice that this is not even envisioning a period of war. It's not saying if you're at war with them, then you can shorten prayers. It's just if you're traveling, you can shorten your prayers because the unbelievers are your enemy. And so here again, we see this demonization of everybody who's outside the fold, which can have very dangerous consequences.
So when it says shorten your prayer, does it mean like break down the rakats, or instead of 5 do less?
Well, this is not. This doesn't give any specifics, okay. And so it's really kind of a free for all as to how you can interpret it. Of course, I'm sure there are hadith regarding it, but the problem is that the demonization of the unbelievers, I think, is more important than how the prayers are shortened. Although maybe I'm missing something in that regard.
No. Because something came to my mind. I was listening Daniel Hakukachi and Adnan Rashid. In their conversation, Adnan Rashid expressed, if as a Muslim you cannot do your prayers in West, you must immigrate back to Muslim country. Mm-hmm. But in here, Allah is giving them option of shorten their prayers.
It's difficult though, because it's only in traveling. If you live here and you can't do your prayers, then it's a different situation. You see, it's a big controversy nowadays, actually. There have been court cases that Muslims have brought and won where they were working in factories and they worked on assembly lines where everything was timed very carefully, and they walked off the job for their prayers and got fired, and then they would sue and get their jobs back or win millions of dollars in settlements. And many people, including me, would point out, but Islamic law allows you to make up prayers that you missed at a later time. But they were insisting, no, it had to be at this time. And you can't really find a justification in this verse for any other point of view, because this is stipulating only when you're traveling and not if you're just off at work.
Okay, sorry, just a second. People wants to know how much you are getting paid for making.
No, not me, Robert. How much have Robert get paid for make mockery of Islam? How much? How much Robert get paid?
So I just thought
make mockery.
In case it was Robert, in case that spelling was correct, not sorry, in case there was a spelling mistake, I just thought this will be good opportunity in case people who are supposed to pay you, Robert, and they haven't done yet, He's the Patreon account of Robert Spencer. Please check it out and then make sure those who need to pay jizya, you do so. You do so.
Thank you very much.
Islam Truth, I think you're not on the list. Please get on with it.
Yes. Unfortunately, Islam Truth is actually, it's an important point, because he's assuming that I'm only doing this because I get paid for money. Yes. As if there was money in this, which is silly, but they have to assume that because it goes back to Muhammad. It goes back to hadiths where the Christians of Najran in Yemen come up to see Muhammad, and they are on their way, and the leader says to the rest of them, we know this man is the prophet, and we know that what he's saying is true, but we have to fight him every step of the way. We can't admit that he's a prophet because the Byzantines pay us money, and they will stop paying us money if we say that Muhammad's a prophet. And so they all go and argue with Muhammad instead of admitting that he's a prophet. And so this is the idea from that the Christians who don't believe in Muhammad, they're only doing it for money. And that's also based on the Quran, that in passages that we've seen, that you know that these people, they know the truth, but they reject it because of their perverse and wicked hearts. I bear whiteness. Yeah, that sounds like our friend Islam Truth. That's very good. Chicken grease. Thank you.
Okay, so do you remember which verse I am in? 102.
Yeah, 102. Yeah.
And when you are among them and arrange prayer for them, let only a party of them stand with you and let them take their weapons. Then when they have performed their prostration, let them fall on their rear and let
fall to the rear, fall to the back. Yeah.
And let another party come forward that has not prayed, and let them pray with you, and let them take their precaution and their weapons. Those who disbelieve long for you to neglect your arms and your baggage, so that they may attack you once and for all. It is no sin for you to lay aside your weapons if rain impedes you and you are sick, but take your precautions. Indeed, Allah is preparing a shameful punishment for unbelievers. When you have concluded the prayer, remember Allah, standing, sitting, and reclining. And when you are in a safety, observe proper prayer. Prayer at fixed times has been commanded for the believers. Do not relent in pursuit of the enemy. If you are suffering...
Note also, wait a sec, prayer at fixed times has been commanded for the believers, but the Quran doesn't say when. So here again, you have to go to the Hadith to find out when exactly the prayer is at fixed times.
Not only the times, but even in certain locations. Remember, you were talking in Surah 2 that Muslims can, like, during Ramadan, this time of the year, some part of the world, they don't have sunrise. So
Yes.
they can't even do their proper Ramadan fasting, let alone do their proper prayers, because sun doesn't kind of come to the right timing for them to do their prayers.
Yes.
Allah didn't do any fixing there.
Well, Allah never seemed to have envisioned or provided for Muslims up by the North Pole or something where it's always daytime or always nighttime, so that they either never fast or fast all day forever and starve to death.
Well, humans came with their own solution, but Allah couldn't come up with anything.
Indeed.
Verse 104, do not relent in pursuit of the enemy. If you are suffering, indeed they are suffering even as you are suffering. And you hope from Allah what they cannot hope for. Allah is ever the knower and the wise. Indeed, we reveal to you the book with the truth, so that you may judge between by what Allah shows you, and do not advocate for treacheries. Yeah, that word.
The treacherous.
Yeah, that word. And seek forgiveness from Allah. Indeed, Allah is always forgiving and merciful. Allah just told people like punishment is waiting for you, and then Allah is not merciful and forgiving.
He has to keep telling you, because otherwise you would never believe it.
And do not advocate for those who deceive themselves. Indeed, Allah does not love the one who are treacherous and sinful. They try to hide from man and do not try to hide from Allah. He is with them when by night they have discussions that are displeasing him. Allah always encompasses what they do. Look, you are the one who peeled for them in the life of this world, but who will peel for them with Allah on the day of resurrection, or who will be their defender then? Yet whoever does evil or wrong towards his own soul, then ask pardon of Allah, will find Allah forgiving, merciful. Whoever commits a sin commits it only against himself. Allah is ever knower, the wise. Whoever commits an offense or sin and then throws in it on the innocent has burdened himself with falsehood and flagrant crime. If it had not been for the favor of Allah upon you and his mercy, a group of them had resolved to mislead you. But they will mislead only themselves, and they will not hurt you at all. Allah reveals the book and the wisdom to you and teaches you what you did not know. The favor of Allah towards you has been infinite.
Well, let's wait a minute here. The favor of Allah has been infinite. Allah will mislead, they will mislead only themselves, while Allah will reveal the book and wisdom to you. And yet we heard earlier, where was it? It wasn't that long ago, we had Allah leading people astray again.
Yeah.
So what if you're one of those people? Then you think Allah is guiding you and giving you the wisdom in the book, and he's really leading you astray. Here it is. It was in 88. Do you seek to guide him whom Allah has led astray? He whom Allah leads astray, for him you cannot find a way. And then in 113, they will mislead only themselves, but they will not hurt you at all. Allah reveals the book and wisdom to you and teaches you what you did not know. But what if Allah is leading you astray and you think he's teaching you what you did not know, but he's really just preparing you for hellfire?
How can you trust him?
You can't know. You can't trust this guy.
Yep. There is no good in most of their secret discussion, except for the one who calls for almsgiving and kindness and peacemaking among the people. Whoever does that, seeking a good pleasure of Allah, we will grant him a great reward. And whoever opposes the messenger after the guidance has been shown to him and follows a way other than of the believer, we establish for him what he himself has turned toward, and expose him to Jahannam, an evil destination. Indeed, Allah does not forgive ascribing partners to him. He forgives everything except of those whom he wills. Whoever ascribes partner to Allah has wandered for astray.
So we saw that before. It's just being repeated here, that associating partners with Allah, shirk, is a worse sin than anything else. Allah will forgive everything but that. And yet Allah leads people astray, as we saw in 88. So Allah apparently makes people ascribe partners to him, and then they're far astray.
So he's been like in the same chapter, he was talking, obeying him and obeying Muhammad, exactly the same thing. They cannot kind of separate. And now, like he himself kind of already partnering something with him. And now he's saying, well, if you do that, you are going to get to hell.
Yep.
You will be forgiven.
There you go.
They invoke instead of him only females. They pray to no one else but Satan, a rebel, whom Allah cursed, and he said, surely I will take an appointment shares of your slaves, and surely I will let them astray, and surely I will arouse desire in them, and surely I will command them, and they will cut the cattle's ear, and surely I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation. Whoever chooses Satan for a patron instead of Allah is indeed loser, and his loss is clear.
Well, look at that. 119 right at the beginning. And surely I will lead them astray. And what does Allah do in 88?
I will highlight this.
In verse 88, Allah leads them astray. So here's Satan saying he will lead them astray. So you have Allah and Satan both leading people astray.
Well, you can say both, or someone might make a case maybe Allah is saying I am also the Satan.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Like maybe he has many different names.
Yes. 99 names. Maybe we found the 100th. Because it is just ridiculous here that Allah is saying whoever chooses Satan for a patron instead of Allah is indeed a loser. And yet Satan acts just the way Allah does. So who's better?
Both of them are the same.
Indeed.
Good quality. Both of them has very good qualities. Verse 120. He promises things to them and strips up desire in them, and Satan makes promises only to fool them.
Sounds like he's leading them astray again, just like Allah.
For such people, their dwelling will be Jahannam, and they will find no refuge from it.
Mm-hmm.
But as for those who believe and do good works, we will bring them in gardens under which river flow, in which they will remain forever. It is a promise from Allah in truth, and who can be more truthful in speech than Allah?
Well, it seems like a lot of people can if he's leading people astray. And maybe this is leading us astray too. This is the problem. This is the big hole in all of Islam, that once Allah says he leads people astray, which we saw again in chapter 4, verse 88, then how can you trust anything he says? He might be leading you astray. He might be promising to bring you into gardens under which rivers flow, but he's really going to cast you into Jahannam. So
it must be a really bad place for Muslims to worship someone who is identified as not trustworthy. It must be a very difficult place to be.
Indeed.
I'm going to take this super chat, and then I think we will stop there. Robert Spencer.
Let me see. How would that work? Yes. Anyway. How do I write so many books? I don't do anything else.
You do lots of things. You like do live streams. You do lots of research. You keep up to date with the news. You keep eye on jihad.
Yeah. It's just all typing, sitting here typing all day.
So you don't have magical two right hands, right?
No, you can tell because one of them's facing the other way.
Well, we are very, very grateful for your books anyway.
I'm very, very grateful for all of you.
I think we stop here, and then we will pick up from verse 123 next time when we meet.
Okay.
Before I let you go, anything is coming up for you this week besides finishing the book? How can people pray for you?
Pray for health. I'm still sick, and that would be nice to have more energy. But anyway, that's the main thing, and thank you.
Okay. Beloved ones, please remember Robert Spencer in your prayers and pray for his health and his hands to put those books together so we can read them. And thank you very much, everyone who joined us in the chat. By God's grace, we will see you on another live stream. Robert Spencer, once again, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.